So this episode is part 2 of my chat with the extremely talented, funny, and intelligent Shari Shattuck. Now, she and I talked about a broad variety of topics, so I have split that into a separate episode, which is what you'll hear tonight, and I hope you enjoy.
You know, all the research I did on schizophrenia, that's a more extreme situation. You're dealing with chemical imbalance and that sort of thing. But it really is difficult to say what's real and what isn't. These things are real to these people.
We have neurotransmitters that filter things out of our brain that they deem to be extraneous or irrelevant.
Out of every second, you're something like 11 million sensory input, and your brain can only handle 40.
LSD simulates a type of schizophrenia where you see a lot of those things that your brain normally filters out. And who's to say that stuff isn't real? That we've just
It is real. Yeah, to me, that's a really great example of why you can have an argument with a lover, a husband, whatever, and both swear on your life that that's what happened. And if you hear it, well, maybe you did see totally different input. You know, maybe you did hear something different. And that brings you back, of course, to would you rather be right or would you rather be happy?
I'd rather be happy.
You can fight all day long to be right, you know, but the bottom line is there's usually more than one right.
I have to share this short story with you and get your take. I was in Boston walking around the city. I was young. And yes, I may have possibly been experimenting with some Timothy Leary-esque type things.
Perhaps. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just leave that as a possibility.
Right, possibly. Right. And then my friend was with me, and we ran into this homeless lady who just was totally drawn to us and looked at us in the eye and said something like, "There you are. I've been waiting for you." And she actually was making sense. And then we walk all around and we're in a totally different part of the city. And there she was again. She's like, I'm glad I found you again. And it was like, I don't remember exactly what she said. That was real. Right. We both saw.
There are things connecting us. There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy. You know, I mean, Einstein was one of the first to actually say, and he did this, he was watching geese migrating. And someone asked, I wonder how they know where to go. And he said, there are things connecting that we do not understand, that we do not see, invisible lines. And of course, we've proven that with radio, with television, with you know, all of those things are there. They actually, you can't see them, but they're connecting us in different ways. And I believe it's the same thing on many levels.
That's amazing you should say that, because I've used that analogy before. I said, if you can send the internet through Wi-Fi and send a file at super high speed across the country, so you don't...
In the ether. We're talking in the ether,
exactly,
guys.
Exactly. Right. Through the air. You don't think human brains can tune to a certain frequency? I think that's something we may not have evolved to yet, but that other 80% of our brain, I have no doubt, is capable of sending a little Wi-Fi signal and beaming it to another person and telepathically.
Absolutely. Well, you know, the science of it is fascinating. You and I always go off on that stuff. The science of it is fascinating. They actually are proving at this point that thought has mass. It has weight.
Oh, yeah.
So all this stuff, you know, the Buddhists talking about projecting and, you know, doing the meditation. Yeah, it actually does affect the physical world. It actually has mass. It's just remarkable what's going on. And the negativity, of course, the same. It's just like when I go on Facebook or whatever and I see these people being mean and negative, I think, why are you producing this into the world? I just don't understand it, you know. We all have our you know, complaints and our bad days.
Venting helps.
Venting, yes. Proper ducting is very important. My mom has been going on auditions and doing stuff, which is just hysterical. She's usually an artist. Well, she got an audition for this show, and they were going to shoot the audition here at my house. Well, she never told me the name of the show or who was going to call or anything. So I get this phone call, and this guy says, "Hi, it's so-and-so from the People's Couch. You have a minute?" And I thought he was selling furniture, you know? So I just said, you know what? I really don't right now. Have a nice night, and hung up the phone. And then after I hung up, I thought, wait a minute. My mom said it was something to do with people on a couch. And so I was like, oh my God, I felt so badly, you know. Well, I seriously thought he was selling like upholstery cleaning or something.
That's so funny.
Here's a little tip. If you tell them, please take me off your call list, they're legally bound to do so. That's the best thing to say.
You have to word it that way. I told my dad, because he'll say, stop calling me. And I said, no. You have to specifically say to be taken off the list. That's what you have to do.
And then they legally have to,
Right.
And you can say that politely, and it's quick.
Well, here's a little story for anybody who doesn't know, but the very first time I ever did an interview was somebody I had a show, and they said, if you can book guests, you can co-host. So I said, I want to try to get all three actresses who played Ashley Abbott on The Young and the Restless on the same show. So I got Brenda and Shari, and he got Eileen, And it was my very first time doing this, and it was just really awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, and that was a good group too, because we've all always had a lot of respect for each other. So.
Exactly, and
it was never, and everybody left because they wanted to leave. It was never any bad,
I know, right?
bad feeling about it.
But it was, and you and Brenda have kept in touch with that of all my guests.
Yeah. Well, she's just a wonderful person. I love people who find ways every day to try to help or make someone stay a little brighter, a little better, and that's Brenda. So
you do that too.
Well, I hope so. You know, we get a little self-involved sometimes, all of us. Get a little angry sometimes when people cut in line or things of this nature. I'm not very nice about that. One of my big tenets in life is get over yourself and be of service to someone else. Mm-hmm. And your problems, as you know, will be feel far less if you're actually contributing. Well, it gives you power, personal power. Just to try to listen and be a good friend and be helpful. Because there's always something, And my other thing is, everybody knows something you don't know. Everybody.
Exactly.
So, instead of bitching or this person isn't good enough, try to connect on some level where you take something away from it.
I've met people who are innately intelligent, but they don't know things that I learned in middle school,
Yeah. Well, there's also the problem, of course, with what we teach, and so much of it is the political correctness. And there's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book called Lies My Teacher Told Me.
Oh, I can read that. I have to
get it and read it. I can't remember the writer's name right now, but it's a guy who writes textbooks. And he was writing the state textbook, the state history, and the old one had so many lies and misconceptions in it. They tried to change it, and they refused. They put back in the lies because it would offend the children.
Was it Texas or something?
No, it wasn't Texas. It was like Missouri or something.
Okay.
But anyways, he sued the state and won. But he talks. The book is about what is taught to us and why, and what forms our thoughts and our American way. And then a lot of it is just dead wrong.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had a history book that my history teacher in junior year in high school, I learned the most from her. She gave us a textbook from 1956 or something, and then a brand new one. And would have us read this. She was a tough teacher. No, she would make us read the same, historical event in both textbooks and write an essay comparing and contrasting them like 3 times. And it was amazing how, oh my God, they glossed over these. They didn't even mention the Japanese internment camps. And Native Americans were bad Indians, And then
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Yeah. And this is what we've been taught to believe. So many people don't realize, that we basically wiped out. Christopher Columbus is my classic example.
Oh, yeah.
This guy is responsible for the genocide of 8 million people. 8 million people, and people don't realize. And yet we have a day celebrating his life here. I mean, this guy was a slave trader. That's how he came here. The horrific things. And these are things that are recorded. I mean, he wrote them down. His son, who became governor of the islands after him, wrote them down.
Right.
This is not like someone's making this up. These are historic documents. We don't teach the kids that. All we do is, brave Christopher Columbus discovered America. No,
he thought he was
came here to get slaves.
He thought he was going to India. That's how they call Native Americans Indians, and I get mad. I get so mad. I tell people, I'm like, do you realize that was a dumb mistake because Christopher Columbus was in the wrong place, and they're actually not anything to do with Indians, and that I don't really care about political correctness most of the time, but when it comes to something that's just blatantly inaccurate with language, it really pisses me off.
You're like, no. Yeah. That was another issue that I had with some of my friends about the whole African American thing, because I grew up partially in the Caribbean, and I've been to Africa many times, and I have friends in Africa who are both black and white, and they're not African Americans, guys.
Oh no, Caribbeans get really mad when you call them that. I had a friend.
It's like, not cool.
No, it's not.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's just a physical description. If you're talking about your, Eurocentric, you're Euro-American, and okay, you're from Europe, and now you live in America. That makes sense. If you're from Africa and you live in the United States, you're African American, but you could be white and be African American.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, South Africa.
So it's just, to me, it's just let's.
The labels are just, to me, they're just. It creates this box that people can't get out of. They can't think outside the stupid box that really doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. And not to say that the overcorrection is important. That's always going to happen. I mean, there's a good reason that people wanted things changed and all. And I totally believe things have to go more extreme one way before they settle back.
Yeah, very true, very true.
Yeah, and they had every right to be upset. Still do.
I still say stewardess, and I still say secretary and garbage man.
I know. And server, that's the other one. When did we waitress become bad and server became good. To me, that sounds much worse.
Sanitation engineer for garbage man. I mean, what's wrong with saying a steward or stewardess for a flight?
What's wrong with being a garbage man? I mean, that's amazing. That's not an easy job. Thank God somebody does it,
Yeah.
So, I have great respect. No matter what you do it well. That's all that matters. Do your best.
That is,
And it doesn't matter if you drive a cab or, make motion pictures or, design buildings. For God's sake, just do the best you can. That's the important thing.
You're a perfectionist, I'm sure.
Too much. Yeah, too much.
Me too.
Yeah. There are some people who are just going to rub you the wrong way or are just miserable human beings. And you can't help them.
Most reality TV stars, I think.
Oh, my God. What is with that? I just don't get it. Yeah.
People are so desperate to get that 15 minutes of fame that they will go on television and make complete fools of themselves.
Well, that's it.
Talent.
I think Tina Fey said it best. She said something along the line of, it just goes to show that if you have no shame, you can be famous in this country.
Exactly.
I don't watch regular television, but I watch something every night that's almost always, on video or whatever, because I'm very selective.
I only watch DVR. I DVR the
So you DVR, that makes sense.
And I fast forward the commercials. I will not watch a commercial.
It makes me insane.
I
can't. We're just trying to watch the Super Bowl. I was like, I'm going to shoot. And especially if you're like us, which is a little ADD, the television draws your attention.
Right.
It becomes a focus point for us, which is why I resent them in restaurants. It drives me crazy because I have to sit, if it's possible, facing away from it or whoever I'm with. It's like I'm rude to them.
I know.
I don't mean to be, but it just, my ADD draws me over there. It keeps getting in my eye.
And you end up reading the subtitles of dish detergent commercial. Why am I
fascinating though they may be.
Or Fox News is on and I'm reading Bill O'Reilly's closed captions. I'm like, I hate this guy. Why am I doing this?
Oh my God. Or sports. I have to tell you that the fame part of things is very confusing and it's very unreal and frankly very lonely. Because people want to be around you. They want to have a part of what they feel like, what they see as this fame and this power, but it's not you. It's not real. And this is why these young stars end up face down in the gutter, inevitably.
Right.
Unless they come from a really strong family who, understands or is in the business, and I have examples of that.
Are you reading my mind? Because I was...
Right, I am.
Seriously.
We're connected. It's one of those invisible internet deals.
I know, right? Because I was going to ask you now, did you think that when people are growing up that if they have a supportive family who nurtures them, I think that's key to somebody being successful, or somebody who just has a horrible family and just says, I'm leaving and I'm just strong enough to go on my own and screw them. Don't you think it's one or the other?
Well, I think, what? I think people come from everything. And people deal with things differently. The people I've seen, and we're talking about public fame right now, right? We're talking about, and the people where it does work is Ron Howard, Michael Douglas, people who grew up in the industry and understood that it was their job.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And just another job. And they understood that the guy moving lights on the set was just as important as them. The people who come into it and are constantly counted to, oh, you're the greatest, oh, you're this, oh, they lose touch with the fact that they are one of many, and they begin to think, I am the most important one, I am, and this is very disconcerting. Now, where a family comes in, of course, is if you have a strong enough family to go, oh, please, get over yourself, you know what I mean, and make fun of your feet, or whatever the heck they do that keeps you, on a level.
Or the friends who knew you before you were famous, and are like...
The friends who knew you before. And, and I have come to understand why certain people who were really big stars have entourages. They travel with you, because otherwise you're alone, You don't know who wants what from you, ever,
Right. Now, was it hard, like, when you were, say, on Y&R and the peak of fame and the magazines, was it really hard to know who was
Y&R wasn't bad. I mean, Y&R, it's a soap opera. The strange thing is when someone comes up and they want to, they think you're that other person.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. They don't really get... But for the most part, soap fans are pretty laid back,
Well, sometimes they have trouble separating the character from the actress. Was there ever a point where you had to really kind of assess who were your real friends and who just wanted to be around you because you were a celebrity?
to a certain degree. But I'm one of those people with one of those families. I have 3 siblings who cannot criticize me often enough. So it's all been, that's all relative. The only time things really got out of control was not in the United States, but in Europe, when I had stuff going, and my ex was super, and it just got to the point where it was insanity. You'd be eating at a restaurant with 50 people standing around you videotaping and taking pictures and throwing their baby in your lap while you're trying to eat. And there really did come a point. And then they'd be angry at you if you didn't perform for them. You know what I mean? And that would make me angry because I'm like, you know what? I'm a person who I get to have a meal. I get to, take my daughter somewhere. That's hard. That kind of thing is very difficult. And I was always grateful that I could come back here and get away from it. To be somebody like a Michael Jackson or these people who are so famous, they can't get away from it. I just don't even know how. It would be very hard.
Well, yeah. I mean, Michael Jackson, that was tragic. But you're also very insightful, and I would think that you could pretty quickly see right through somebody who just wanted to be around you because of your...
Well, yes, you can, absolutely. But, beyond that, sometimes there are people who you really consider to have great worth, but I think it's our society has, made this weird fame thing, so it's almost like it creates a glass wall between you. I don't want there. I just want you to treat me like, a normal person. I don't want you to feel like I'm on TV and that makes me different in any way. So in that sense, it was very frustrating.
Yeah. Well, I like you just because you're cool, and I like you, and you're smart. I gravitate towards musicians, artists, people who are creative. I've always been very grateful when there's somebody I know who has been successful because I learned from them.
Right, of course. Absolutely. You learn from them, and I think... Also, there has become for me, especially with writers, it's a much more embracing, supportive world than acting, which makes sense. And music, I guess, is the same. Although music is a little different. I think imagine you have some of both. But I do find that the more people that you celebrate, you know what I mean, more people you root for, the more people you help, the more victories you have. You know what I mean?
Agree, yeah.
And this is something that I have sensed with writers. They're just so supportive and so lovely and helpful, way more. But I think that's because there's room for so many.
Right.
Whereas in acting, when I would go on auditions, there's 5, we get to final network approval or whatever, there's 5 people there. You could all do the job. Come on, it's apples and oranges.
Right.
And yet only one can get the job. So it generates creativity. It generates jealousy and coveting, and you want them to fail so that you can get the job. And that's a strange place to have your head. I can have a bestseller book, and so can my friend Julie Kenner. So it works differently.
Well, that's what I think is so cool about you. You're just so down to earth. You can talk to you about anything. And in fact, I remember the first tweet I would put my foot in my mouth.
Stop talking. That's hard.
Yeah, but so now, would you ever consider going back to being a regular in a TV series, or is that something that you just kind of...
I would if it was something that I wanted to do and it suited my schedule. Because right now I'm busy being a mom. But I have Kaylee is now in 9th grade. Oh wow! So really, I got 3 more years, and then she's off to college, and then it would be a little easier. But I gotta tell you, for all wanting to be famous and glamorous, when you're working 18 hours a day on a set, or living in some tiny hotel room in the middle of nowhere, it's very difficult to be a family and a parent.
I'm sure.
And that's just not a choice I wanted to make. So the soap was the easiest job by far.
Really?
For having a family. Oh my God, yes.
Oh.
I would go in because Y&R was shot split stage. I have 2 stages, 2 different groups of sets. So as long as you weren't on both of those stages, you shot either morning or afternoon.
Right.
I would go in at 6 a.m. and leave at 9, done for the day.
Soap stars, though, tend to be really down to earth and laid back.
It's a government job. It's the government job of acting. It is.
Yeah,
it is. It's the most 9 to 5. You're in the same place, level floors, air conditioning, climate control, secretaries. It's not like being off on location shooting icebergs, up in Alaska or something.
No, but a primetime series, like if you're, say, on a half-hour primetime show, I've heard that's a pretty not as strenuous job.
It depends. Sitcoms were one of my favorites.
Right.
Sitcoms were because Yeah, they were, you rehearse all week, and then you tape with a live audience, usually on Friday, which was the best of both worlds, you know. Great fun, and regular hours. Those were wonderful. Hour-long, like Dallas, when I did, those things are brutal. I was on the last season, the last year.
I know, in a bikini the whole time.
I know, bikini the entire time. But because of that, they had it down. The crew was so tight on that show. But other shows, you know, I remember talking to Erin Gray about that, and she was like, I just can't do it anymore. She's like, I never see my daughter. I'm never home. And she was just like, I can't do this.
Well, you know, if they did that show for that many years, they're probably financially well off, and they probably just want to have a life. You know?
Yeah, some people don't need to do anything else. And sometimes people, you know, they get, what's the word, you know, slotted into that one role, and people don't want to see them do anything else. Yeah. It's very hard to break out of the mold of whatever character it was.
Sci-fi actors especially is tough.
Yeah.
Now, when you did Babylon 5, those can be kind of grueling if they're special effects and whatnot. Yeah,
those can be. Although a lot of special effects these days are done CGI, so those are done post-production. Babylon 5 was a very tight set. They did a really great job with that. And so, yeah, that seemed pretty reasonable. Yeah, working with Bruce was great. I loved him. I don't know if I told you this story or not, but this one episode, I'm supposed to like try to get him to sleep with me. So the way that we do it is, you know, they shoot like I'm supposed to step out. I'm supposedly naked. Well, they show you, you know, from the back, like waist up. So on the front, I'm wearing like an elastic or whatever tube top thing. I think they were showing, you know, just over my shoulder, like I'm naked. Well, I step out to do the scene, and the tube top flips down. And Bruce is doing his lines, camera's on him. His eyes never dropped. God love that man. He finished those lines. I'm smiling, I'm laughing, you know, trying to pull the thing up again. He finished the scene, we cut the scene, and he was like, did you see that? Did you see that? He was so funny.
Well, that's a professional.
I was like, that's a gentleman. Thank you.
Now, speaking that segues great to my question. Now, I have the feeling that if you've ever had any, quote, traditional jobs in your life, you may have had some issues with male bosses.
No, I never have had a traditional job in my life. But I will tell you that I've had many male bosses, mostly producers. And yes, and I have had many issues with them, as you might imagine, in this business. And what I've always found is it's the really insecure ones that are the most dangerous. The ones who are like, you know, everyone talking about Steven Seagal. Steven could not have been nicer, you know? I mean, yeah, maybe he would have slept with me if I would have made an advance. I don't know. Well, I actually found out I was pregnant the same day I got his movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I told him right away, and he was like, "Oh, it's great, Kelly's pregnant," you know. He was just a real gentleman. But then you get these little, you know, these insecure producers who this is the only way they're ever going to get a check, you know, kind of thing. Yeah. And when they make advances on you, and you try to say, "Look, I'm married," or "I'm really not disinterested," it becomes this big thing, you know.
Yeah. And it's hard in that business to report sexual harassment because you can tank your career. They can.
You really can't, you know. I mean, you have to just keep yourself out of it. I had to do it one time, and with a director to the producers, and it worked out okay. I finished the movie, but the director came to me at one point and was like, "Why did you do that?" And I said, "Because you were out of line, and I can't, you know, you can't put your hands on me when we're, you know." But it was okay. The producers, you know, stuck with me, and so it did go okay.
Well, that's good because I know it's kind of an old boys club in Hollywood, and if you try to, you know, say sue someone for sexual harassment in the business, they can really just kind of blacklist you.
Absolutely. And I mean, and also, you know, there's two sides to that. Then you have the people who sue for other things. And why do you want to work with somebody that's going to sue you, you know?
Right.
I mean, I not to say anything against her because I think she's been through more than enough, but with Hunter Tyler.
Oh, you know. She's very proud of that because she said she didn't do it to work on the show. She did it. It set a precedent. Now women cannot be fired from their job for being pregnant.
Sorry, that wasn't it. Like I said, she's been through some horrible things, and I wish nothing but the best for you know, she and her family. What happened was nobody wanted to work with her after that. I mean, if you're going to sue people, I think she could have had an amazing nighttime career. One of the most stunning women I'd ever met in real life.
Doing a lot of good, though, in the end, for women in the entertainment industry, because it was really the only industry left where a woman could get fired for being pregnant, and now they can't.
Yeah, but I agree. But, you know, I have very mixed feelings feelings about that too. I mean, this is a business where we are cast to meet a physical role, right? If you cast someone to play an Olympic speed skier, in his life story, and the first day of filming he breaks his leg, do you have to use that guy?
No.
I mean, come on.
No.
He cannot perform the job. And I do believe that's the same thing. I mean, I think Hunter and women like her make a lot of money because they're very beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you're physically very sexy. Now you can't perform that role.
Well, you did Ashley behind big flower bouquets and boulders.
Absolutely. I was pregnant as hell. And, and they almost played the pregnancy on it. Yeah. I mean, they had that choice. But, it would have been their choice to not use me. I think they did it on a B&B. I think they did it once with Brooke, too.
Well, she took a leave of absence, though, and someone else took over the role once. I know.
Yeah, she did. But she was so funny because when she got pregnant the first time, I mean, she just got round. I mean, her face was like a circle. She was so funny. And I remember her we went out to dinner one time, and she had ordered like a hamburger, like a cheeseburger with chili and chili cheese fries. And her husband is sitting next to her, and he went to pick up one of her fries, and she went, "Stop! I want it all!"
I couldn't imagine Kelly eating like that now.
No, me neither, but it was so funny. She did not even let him have a French fry. He was like, whatever.
I've met people who are innately intelligent, but they don't know things that I learned in middle school,
Yeah. Well, there's also the problem, of course, of what we teach, and so much of it is the political correctness. And there's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book called Lies My Teacher Told Me.
Oh, I can read that. I have to
get it and read it. I can't remember the writer's name right now, but it's a guy, he writes textbooks. And he was writing the state textbook, the state history, and the old one had so many lies and misconceptions in it, they tried to change it, and they refused. They put back in the lies because it would offend the children.
Was it Texas or something?
No, it wasn't Texas. It was like Missouri or something.
Okay.
But anyways, he sued the state and won. But he talks. The book is about what is taught to us and why, and what forms our thoughts and our American way. And then a lot of it is just dead wrong.
Oh yeah, well, we had a history book that my history teacher in junior year in high school, I learned the most from her. She gave us a textbook from 1956 or something, and then a brand new one, and would have us read this. She was a tough teacher. No, she would make us read the same, historical event in both textbooks and write an essay comparing and contrasting them like 3 times. And it was amazing how, oh my God, they glossed over things. They didn't even mention the Japanese internment camps. And Native Americans were bad Indians, And then
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh no, and this is what we've been taught to believe. So many people don't realize, that we basically wiped out. Christopher Columbus is my classic example.
Oh yeah,
this guy is responsible for the genocide of 8 million people. 8 million people, and people don't realize, and yet we have a day celebrating his life here. I mean, this guy was a slave trader. That's why he came here. The horrific things, and these are things that are reported. I mean, he wrote them down. His son, who became governor of the islands after him, wrote them down. Right. This is not like someone's making this up. These are historic documents. And we don't teach the kids that. All we do is, brave Christopher Columbus discovered America. No,
he thought he was
came here to get slaves.
He thought he was going to India. That's how they call Native Americans Indians, and I get mad. I get so mad. I tell people, I'm like, do you realize that was a dumb mistake because Christopher Columbus was in the wrong place, and they're actually not anything to do with Indians, and that I don't really care about political correctness most of the time, but when it comes to something that's just blatantly inaccurate with language, it really pisses me off.
You're like, no. That was another issue that I had with some of my friends about the whole African American thing, because I grew up partially in the Caribbean, and I've been to Africa many times, and I have friends in Africa who are both black and white, and they're not African Americans, guys.
Oh no, Caribbeans get really mad when you call them that. I had a friend.
It's like, not cool.
No, it's not.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's just a physical description. If you're talking about your, Eurocenter, you're Euro-American, then okay, you're from Europe and now you live in America. That makes sense. If you're from Africa and you live in the United States, you're African American, but you could be white and be African American.
That's absolutely true. Yes, South Africa.
So it's just, to me, it's just let's.
The labels are just, to me, they're just. It creates this box that people can't get out of. They can't think outside the stupid box that really doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. And not to say that the overcorrection is important. That's always going to happen. I mean, there's a good reason that people wanted things changed and all. And I totally believe things have to go more extreme one way before they settle back.
Yeah, very true, very true.
Yeah, and they had every right to be upset. Still do.
They still say stewardess, and they still say secretary and garbage man.
I know. And server, that's the other one. When did waitress become bad and server became good? To me, that sounds much worse.
Sanitation engineer. Garbage man. I mean, what's wrong with saying a steward or stewardess for a flight?
What's wrong with being a garbage man? I mean, that's what amazing. That's not an easy job. Thank God somebody does it,
Yeah.
So, I have great respect. No matter what you do, do it well. That's all that matters. Do your best.
That is,
And it doesn't matter if you drive a cab or, make motion pictures or, design buildings. For God's sakes, just do the best you can. That's the important thing.
You're a perfectionist, I'm sure.
Too much. Yeah, too much. Here's my new pet peeve, because, I'm a hiker. And one of the main reasons I go is for the quiet. Hear the birds. The new thing people do is take their phones with them and play music loud while they're hiking. And I'm like, what is the point of that? I mean, do you really need that much more noise in your life? This woman was listening to a talk show in Spanish. But literally in this beautiful hiking canyon. And of course, when you're in canyons, someone can talk over there and it sounds like they're right next to you, So she's making everyone listen to this, But then her defense was, it's about the Lord. I'm like, I don't think the Lord wants you to try to disturb everyone.
I think she did it very calculatingly then, because she knew.
She did.
Yeah.
Because then the whole thing was, well, that's why your life is so miserable, because you don't have the Lord. And I'm like, I'm like, I'm glad you have something you believe in, but believe me, I'm very happy. Jesus was a brilliant philosopher. So was Buddha. So was Muhammad.
Exactly.
But this whole thing of elevating them to balls of light, guys, they were humans, and you're disrespecting them by making them, trying to make them something else. And also, their words have been so twisted, and so many people have tried to control with them. Just, think for yourself, Don't just listen to what everybody tells you.
Well,
I think that's so important.
Literacy was banned in the Middle Ages when the Roman Empire morphed itself into the Catholic Church and hid all the documents, and unless you were clergy or royalty or the Illuminati, because they were just too smart and they had to let them in, you were burned at the stake for being a witch.
Goes on and on.
They didn't want anyone to know anything because they were hiding so much. But
well, it's not only they didn't want to know anything, but if people are educated, you can't control them.
Exactly, that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and this is a huge thing, and so much fear of anyone having any power or anything. I mean, during the Inquisition, they don't actually have the details, but the Inquisition killed off something like 4 million women. 4 million.
Oh, God, man.
Because they were the midwives, they had knowledge, and if for something as simple as enjoying a walk in the woods, they would declare them a witch. And it was just they killed off the feminine energy, the natural, because they couldn't control
They knew how to help women have children without all that pain and stuff.
Oh my God, it's just horrific. And that's one reason.
Mary Magdalene was demonized. It doesn't even say in the Bible that she was a prostitute.
But it also doesn't say that Mary was a virgin, because you understand it was written in Greek.
Right.
And in Greek, the word for virgin is the same word as young woman.
Right.
Hello.
And you know what? I honestly don't think it matters whether you take it literally or figuratively, but if you use the example of who Jesus was as a person in the book, and live your life like that, that's a good way to live,
Absolutely. He left a blueprint. Absolutely. And that's what I say. I have great respect for the man and what he said. For the church that was created and written after him, I do not.
Exactly. Me too. And I know people who are religious, and they do, they're so judgmental that they're in fact the exact opposite of Jesus. They don't even realize it.
It's just sad, isn't it? And just have the compassion. It really comes down to don't do what you hate.
Right.
Don't tell lies. It's the golden rule. It's, do unto others as you would do unto. That just settles it right there.
And I know people who have strong beliefs in that in Christianity, but they don't push it on others, and they treat people like they should be treated. And so
exactly. I have tons of friends who are, devout Catholics or whatever, who just would never judge anyone.
Right.
They would never judge someone for being gay or whatever. Right. That's what Jesus said. Love everybody. He didn't say love everybody except the gays, guys.
Right. Oh no, he said, you know what? It's funny because the only 2 parts in the Bible that's in is the book of Leviticus, which is not a religious book. It was the book of the Jewish law at the time. Because, yes, that lifestyle would have been a hindrance to the survival of the Jews because they were a nomadic tribe. They needed to procreate.
Absolutely.
And a woman would have been stoned to death for cheating on her husband. Then again, in the New Testament, the Apostle Paul wrote a letter to a church, but that was only one man's opinion. There was nothing said by God. It's not in the Ten Commandments. It's not in the teachings of Jesus. So,
I know. And it's like, and the other thing is when people do start taking things literally, I'm like, you better speak ancient Greek and Hebrew. Because if you want to take it literally, that's what you have to talk about.
But Shari, the world's only 6,000 years old.
I know. Okay, now we're in trouble.
I was trying to tell people, you don't have to dismiss science to believe in a religion.
Science to me is a miracle. I mean, to me, it's like proof that there is something bigger and more intelligent.
It's just it explains the what and the how, not the why.
It's remarkable. Yeah, it's just everything's a miracle. And part of the proof of that, I think, is that, lots of scientists don't believe in any kind of religious God, but a lot of people did. Einstein did.
Physicists do. Physicists, they call it the spiritual science. And the gap between physics and metaphysics is slowly closing.
Very much so. Yes, very much so. And I think that we just have to keep an open mind as usual. There's one thing you can count on, it's change. We talked about this too. Christianity is 2,000 years old.
Right.
There were religions that lasted a lot longer than that.
And all every religion I studied in college, but ancient Babylon, one of the first recorded religions, had the same archetypes.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Well, you're just a wonderful person, Rob. I'm so glad. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're wonderful, too, and thank you for being so supportive. I love talking to you, as always.
Okay, honey. All right, well, have a great weekend.
You, too.
Thanks, sweetie.
I always love any chance I get to talk with Shari. She's so smart. So go on Amazon.com, pre-order the book Invisible Ellen, and there also will be links tweeted out about how you can enter a contest to win an advance copy of the book. I was fortunate enough to get one because of the interview, and I tell you, I love this book, and she's my favorite author. So people go and check it out, and go to ShariShattuck.com. Follow her on Twitter at Shari Shattuck. Thanks for listening. This is Rad One Radio.